There are certain fighters in the UFC who are confident in their abilities and are always ready to step in and fight anyone on short notice. So here is 5 fighters who will fight anyone, anytime. Number 5. Ovince St Preux is a top light heavyweight in the UFC who stepped in on short notice many times to test himself against the best fighters. When Jimmy Manuwa pulled out of his fight against Mauricio Shogun Hua at UFC Fight Night 56, Ovince St Preux immediately put his name forward and was given the main event slot. In the fight, it only took 34 seconds for OSP to quickly dispatch Shogun, winning the fight by TKO in the first round. When Daniel Cormier pulled out of his fight against John Jones at UFC 197, OSP immediately jumped on the opportunity to face a fighter which many fans consider to be the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. This fight would now be for the interim UFC light heavyweight title. In the fight, John Jones dominated OSP to win the fight by a unanimous decision. OSP is a great talent in the 205-pound division, where after a few more wins, he will definitely become a serious threat for the title. Number 4. The Diaz brothers are always ready to fight, no matter where they are. Both brothers are high-level jiu-jitsu practitioners and have great boxing skills, where they have fought every fighter that has been offered to them without any hesitation. When George St Pierre pulled out of his fight against Nick Diaz at UFC 137, BJ Penn stepped in as a late replacement, where Nick Diaz was not affected of the last-minute opponent change. He went on to dominantly defeat BJ Penn by a unanimous decision. When Rafael dos Anjos pulled out of his fight against Conor McGregor at UFC 196, Nate Diaz immediately stepped in on short notice to face Conor McGregor in the main event at UFC 196, where he went on to submit Conor McGregor via rear naked choke in the second round, shocking the world. Both brothers are ready for any situation and will literally fight anyone, anytime. Number 3. Conor McGregor is the current UFC lightweight champion who is willing to face anyone whenever his opponents pull out of fights. When Jose Aldo was pulled from UFC 189 due to a rib injury, top featherweight Chad Mendes stepped in on 2 weeks' notice to face Conor McGregor for the interim UFC featherweight title. Chad Mendes is a high-level wrestler and has a completely different fighting style to Jose Aldo, but this did not affect Conor McGregor's preparation for the bout. In the fight, Conor McGregor finished Chad Mendes by TKO in the second round. When Rafael dos Anjos pulled out of his fight at UFC 196, Conor McGregor put out an open challenge to all the fighters on the roster, when Nate Diaz stepped in on short notice to face Conor McGregor in the main event at UFC 196. Even though Conor McGregor would lose by submission in the second round, he has never backed down from a fight and is always willing to face anyone at any time. Number 2. Anderson Silva is the former UFC middleweight champion who shot many times in his UFC career. He was ready to face anyone at any given moment. After Vitor Belfort pulled out of his fight against Anderson Silva at UFC 112, Damian Maia, who is a world-class Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner, stepped in on short notice to fight for the title. Both Vitor Belfort and Damian Maia have very different fighting styles, where Anderson Silva didn't hesitate with the opponent change and went on to defeat Damian Maia by a unanimous decision. After both Jose Aldo and Eric Koch were pulled out of the main event at UFC 153, Anderson Silva stepped in on short notice to save the main event and face Stephan Bonner in a light heavyweight bout where he won the fight by TKO in the first round. After John Jones was pulled from UFC 200 against his fight with Daniel Cormier, Anderson Silva stepped in on a day's notice and faced Daniel Cormier, where he lost the fight by a unanimous decision. Anderson Silva has saved UFC cards on numerous occasions, where it goes to show that he's ready to face anyone at any given moment. Number 1. Donald Cerrone is a top lightweight in the UFC who is one of the most active fighters on the roster. He likes to keep himself busy and is always ready to step in to face anyone at any given time. When Eddie Alvarez pulled out of his fight against Benson Henderson at UFC Fight Night 59, Donald Cerrone had just defeated Miles Jury at UFC 182 and stepped in to face Benson Henderson on 2 weeks' notice, where after a very close fight, the unanimous decision was given to Donald Cerrone. When Khabib Nurmagomedov pulled out of his fight against Donald Cerrone at UFC 187, Donald Cerrone was open to fight anyone and wanted to remain on the card. John Makdessi stepped in on short notice and lost by TKO in the second round. When Tim Means was pulled from his fight against Donald Cerrone, Alex Oliveira stepped in on short notice and lost the fight by submission in the first round. Donald Cerrone's confidence in his abilities is on a whole new level and is ready to face anyone at any given moment.